Hey guys, how are we doing? Back with another video from Mother's Basement, and it is another Sword Art Online video. I'm saying it because like that because I feel like it's going to help enforce the video that I'm watching. Anime's Dead Horse. Why do we keep coming back to Sword Art Online? It's quite an interesting question, really, because everyone gives Sword Art Online so much grief and so much poopage, yet everyone still keeps coming back to talk about it. Why? Well, let's find out, and I do promise I'm going to get around to that alicization video, but I don't see the point in doing it when I haven't finished the series yet. So once I have finished that, I promise you, I will watch that. But until then, Anime's Dead Horse. Why do we keep coming back to Sword Art Online?
Well, Valentine's Day just came and went, and I can't think of a better way to celebrate than by talking about one of the things I love most. Hating Sword Art Online.
There you go.
One of the questions that I get asked most often is, why do you make so many videos about SAO? Well, okay, usually it's not so much a question as an accusation. You're just making videos about SAO for the views.
I've seen people
wow,
say that.
Another SAO video. Guess Jeff's short on rent this month. And, well, I mean, that's not wrong, not entirely. Finances and views aren't the first thing I think about when I make videos about SAO or anything, but I'd be lying if I said that weren't a factor, and lying very unconvincingly at that, considering that 5 of the 10 most viewed videos on my channel are about SAO. 6 if you count the double feature What's in an OP about Konosuba and ReZero. In total, out of the almost 200 videos on this channel, the 6 that I've made about SAO account for 16.6% of my total views, 20% of all the money I've ever earned from Google AdSense, and I'd wager about 25% of my current audience subscribed because of one of them.
They want to see you hit on it.
Yeah, I and basically every other AniTuber have benefited from covering SAO, and with more seasons and a live-action adaptation coming, we'll continue to do so for a long time.
Oh yeah, when Netflix do that live-action one, that's going to be big, isn't it?
Why do anime YouTubers keep beating this dead horse with money or views doesn't really work beyond a surface level, because the real question is, if SAO really is a dead horse, then why does discussion of it generate so much consistent buzz? It takes 2, as they say, to fairy dance, and last I checked, hundreds of thousands of viewers are dancing to the tune of almost every YouTuber who covers SAO. The people who are sick of hearing about it may be more vocal, but they're vastly outnumbered by the people thirsty for more. And on that note, if the people making these videos weren't consistently coming up with new, interesting things to say about it, that huge audience would get bored pretty damn quickly.
There's Everything Wrong With, the abridgments.
I wouldn't spend a full work week rewatching and writing about a series I hate if the project wasn't fun for me to work on. There are plenty of easier ways to get views and subscribers on YouTube, and I'm pretty sure that Gigic, Explanation Point, Pedantic Romantic, Digibro, and most of the other anime YouTubers who've talked about SAO feel the same way. So the real question is, what is it about SAO that makes it so interesting to talk about, and why are so many people interested in hearing that conversation? Today, I'm going to be answering those questions. And before anyone says it, yes, I've seen both Gigic and, of course, my own video about the source of SAO's popularity, and I'm not going to be rehashing what was said there.
Might check
would be a bit too ironic.
But I feel like I've been doing too much Sword Art Online stuff. Let me know.
Good critical punching bag, and what's keeping it alive in the critical discourse around anime. Mostly because I find the subject fascinating, and partly because, yeah, I've got bills to pay. Now, obviously, I can't speak to every other content creator's experience with SAO, only to my own. I can't tell you what it is specifically about the show that makes something witty want to parody it, or Digibro want to spend an hour eviscerating it. I can only tell you what I see in the show, and why I think discussing it is so interesting and useful. Now that's an odd word to throw at a piece of disposable pop media. There are a lot of words that I'd choose to describe the anime I talk about. Entertaining, enlightening, educational, emotionally resonant. A lot of E-words in there. But useful would be at the bottom of the list for most of them, and not just because it doesn't start with an E. Because while many anime have made me happy, enriched my life, even given new meaning to things I care deeply about, there aren't many that I'd say have been directly helpful. But SAO, by virtue of the fact that so many people have seen it, has a lot of utility as a point of
Right,
reference
so because there's a
when
huge
criticizing
audience
or
of people that
talking
know
about
what you're going to be
anime
talking
and
about,
media
you may
in
as well
general.
have the discussion.
I could describe the plot intricacies of Log Horizon to you in excruciating detail, or I could say it's like SAO but smarter and without permadeath, and you'd get it. I can say
Yeah,
that
that's
Kato
true,
the right
because
answer
everyone's seen
falls
it.
apart worse than Alfheim Online, and, well, you'd get that too. There are only a few anime, like FMA, Dragon Ball Z, Attack on Titan, One Punch Man, and Pokemon, that I can talk about like that and expect you to instantly understand me. Like Game of Thrones, Star Wars, Harry Potter, The Beatles, Mario, and GTA, anime like this serves as an easily accessible frame of reference for talking about the features, successes, and failures of more niche titles. I can expect anyone who's even remotely interested in my content to have at least a passing familiarity with them, which makes it easier for my videos to reach people who aren't familiar with the obscure shows that I talk about. And I'd say that SAO has even more utility than other similarly popular anime, specifically because it's so flawed. There aren't many cases where literally millions of people have had the same negative experience with the same media product.
Yeah.
Sure, some people who watch SAO still like it.
I like
a
it.
lot do, even, despite
Yeah, there's a
my
big
best
number.
efforts. But by and large,
Most
almost
people.
everyone who's seen it can agree that the show has character writing
Oh,
problems,
yeah, there's
that the
problems
fairy
with
dance
it.
art
I'll
straight
admit
up
it.
sucks, and that the series is a bit ham-handed when it comes to
I liked
handling
fairy
sensitive
dance.
topics, to put it mildly. So Sword Art Online is very good
But I
fodder
understand
for
where the problems are, it's fine.
contextualizing,
I just
say,
enjoy it.
disappointment that I felt watching Charlotte, the way that overpowered protagonists suck the tension out of Mahoka
Oh,
and
Kakegurui was
Kakegurui, or
so
the way that a
lame.
show like ReZero manages to be genuinely dark as opposed to angsty and edgy like SAO. There are more specifically applicable points
Season
of
2 of
comparison
ReZero
for all
soon.
of those, Kamega Kill or Mirai Nikki for discussion of edginess, for example, but none that guarantee broad understanding like SAO does. So that's why I talk about the show so much when talking about other shows, but it's also why SAO is often my go-to example when I want to talk about problems with plot structure, storytelling, or character development, which, if you break them down, is what Fixing Alfheim, How Yui Ruined SAO, and my Ordinal Scale rant are really all about. I could have had similar discussions about plenty of different shows and movies, and I probably will make more Fixing Anime videos in the future, but
That'd be cool to
building
see.
each video essay around SAO specifically let me hone in on specific writing problems that everyone who's watched the show has either identified or at least experienced, which meant that I didn't have to spend a lot of time clarifying those points or explaining why they're problems. Hell, this video is mostly just an excuse to talk about my actual favorite subject, me, and more specifically my creative process. And the reason I made my first SAO video, the What's in an OP, was mainly because people kept asking me what I thought made a bad OP, and SAO provided a lot of good examples.
So you were just
of
like,
that.
right, okay, may as well just use
That
it.
and Reddit's Best OP contest got me really riled up. And that
Yeah.
points to another major reason that I like talking about SAO so much. It's relevant to my specific interests. Sword Art Online is a show about video games, and to an extent, game development. That's one of my favorite subjects, which I don't have many opportunities to discuss since
And
anime
then you
is
get
my
to when you
channel's
talk
main
about Sword
focus.
Art
My
Online.
most popular and probably best video about the series, Why SAO is a Terrible Game too, came about mainly because I'm sick and tired of media in general that misrepresents the development process and the art of game design and fails to understand what makes games fun. I could have torn apart, say, the fake video games that we see in the terrible stoner comedy Grandma's Boy, or even Excel World, which, now that I mention it, but SAO just seemed like the best fit for this
I need to
discussion.
check that out.
Both because Reki Kawahara's slapdash approach to writing gave me a lot to work with, and because I was already very familiar with the show's world and lore. And not just because of the two previous videos that I'd made about the series, although that did help. This is the other reason that I'm so enthusiastic about analyzing and criticizing SAO. Before I hated the series, I really loved it. I was watching it week to week as it aired, and I went through the same emotional arc as almost everyone else who did so. I was getting hyped for every subsequent fight in Heincrad, and I got a little bored going into Alfheim, and then I was absolutely disgusted by the last few episodes. I also came back for Death Gun, hoping it could recapture the magic, and I was at least half engaged throughout that arc, although I was also
Gale.
actively making fun of the constant ass shots.
Yeah, there was a lot of them.
Moments,
There's a
and
lot.
then I found myself disgusted again, straight up dropping the series when they decided to cap it off with more of the same bullshit from Alfheim. When I got to it later, I somewhat enjoyed Mother's Rosario, but the damage was done, man. All I could see in the show was its flaws, and while for a long time I was just content to let it be a bad thing that I watched and forgot about, when thinking about anime became my full-time job, it started tugging at the back of my mind again. I needed to understand everything this show did wrong, how it fumbled all the great ideas
Like,
and
where
themes
did it go
inherent to
wrong?
its premise, and why it went from good to mediocre to offensively awful in the span of one season. We can learn a lot about narrative structure, emotional beats, writing, direction, and, well, everything that goes into telling a story from any media, good or bad. But as is the case with real life, I think you can learn more from the failures than you can from successes. Figuring out the cause of a mistake doesn't just tell us what went wrong, it highlights what could have gone right and validates storytelling decisions that do work in other media. And it helps us understand our own thought processes as well, what affects us emotionally, what it takes to get us invested in a world or group of characters, and what small or big things can break that investment, shatter our suspension of disbelief, or just make a show feel boring and predictable. And I think that's where the massive interest in discussion and criticism of SAO comes from. I think a lot of people are disappointed with the show, and sure, they want to have their opinions validated, they want to laugh at some guy getting unreasonably angry about a cartoon and being overly sarcastic and mean toward it. All of the things that make angry reviews of films and games entertaining absolutely apply here. Outrage is funny, and it's nice to have more ways of hitting
It can be funny to see someone rant, yes.
But I think you guys are also here because you want to understand why SAO felt like such a colossal letdown. Why you hate it so much now, and
I like to see why
maybe
people don't like it.
you enjoyed it so much when you first started watching it, and how it could have been done better.
I like to see both sides of
your
the story.
gateway anime. If that's the case, then it's naturally going to color how you view everything else that you watch now, and thus be consistently relevant for you whether you like it or not. There are a lot of things about SAO that make it such a fascinating discussion topic, and I think there are a lot of things left to be said about it, which is good because the new SAO spin-off is almost upon us, and for that matter, so is tax season.
I liked it.
Bookwalker is the place to get instant access to hundreds of English language manga
I like
and
Gungo,
novels.
and
one
it's
of
just
my
weird that I
personal
did that
favorite
video
ways to read.
from
Their books use super
Annie
high
Sins
resolution
yesterday on
scans,
the,
so you don't lose out on any of the
on it.
detail in the artwork, but you can fit a whole library of books into the palm of your hand. I find myself reading Bookwalker on my phone every time I'm stuck on a plane heading for a con.
I don't think I'll do
the hours just
Giguk
by.
one. I feel like I'm
intended. If none of the
again
sales that I
beating a
mentioned
dead
today
horse
interest you,
kind
you
of
can
thing.
still
It's like,
use the
you know,
promo code
like
BASEMENT
I don't want to do too much of the
discount
same.
on any of the hundreds of
But,
light novel manga volumes on their
yeah,
store.
I felt like
If
checking
you're
this one
looking
out
for manga
before doing the
recommendations, I
Alicization
highly
one.
suggest picking up Ghost in the Shell, Erased, Made in Abyss, or Delicious in Dungeon. And as for light novels, I really enjoyed The Combat Baker and Automaton Waitress, Spice and Wolf, Konosuba, and Overlord, as well as the manga
I've got volume one of the
SAO
manga.
alternative
It's cool.
Gun Gale Online.
If you've not
A
seen
new
it, check it
SAO
out.
spin-off written by
Check
the
it out.
creator of Kino's Journey that's actually really good and has an
Boom.
anime coming next season.
Yeah, man.
I will probably have at least a few things to say about that when the time comes, so subscribe to Mother's Basement to make sure you catch that when it comes out. While you're waiting for that, though, head on down to the comments and tell me, well, actually, tell me why you're here. What makes you interested in hearing more about SAO? And if you're not interested in hearing more about SAO, well, now I really want to know
Why you're here.
And lastly, if you want to support me further, consider pledging to my Patreon at patreon.com/mothersbasement. These beautiful human beings have already done just that, and don't you want to be beautiful too, just like them? If you're not sick of hearing my voice talk about SAO yet, click here for my breakdown
Subscribe
of
to
how the
Mother's
story
Basement.
of
I like it.
Online
I like the
can
What's in an OP
drastically
videos,
improve,
and I like
or
all that.
for
Like,
something
it's
completely
great.
different, click here for a handy old PSA that will teach you how to survive if you ever become the protagonist of a horror man.
There's no links
I'm
there.
Jeff Stu, professional shitbag,
Signing out from my mother's basement. Fantastic. There we go. It's true. There's a lot to talk about. It was an interesting one, though. Like, a lot of people watched it, so a lot of people share the same, like, thoughts, whether they like it or dislike it, and it causes discussion, which is why when someone has an opinion, they put it out there, people will either share it or argue it, and then it spirals from there. Very, very valid. Cool. So yeah, there we go. Thank you guys very much for watching. What do you guys think of that? What do you guys think of this? Click like, subscribe if you haven't already. Leave comments down below. Let me know what I should watch discuss in future videos, and I'll see you guys. See you guys next time. Bye.